Hi, Lori here. We're going to read some more of Same Sun Here. We are on page 102. So the top of my page, it says R because River is writing this letter. River is writing this letter to Mina. We're going to read pages 102 through 113. It says 4th of November, 2008. Dear Mina, we are out of school for election day. That's the day we vote. But I had to get up early anyway because Mama wanted me to go with her to the voting booth this morning. She says that it's important for me to understand how lucky we are to be able to vote. She votes at the fire station, and even though it was cold and gray and drizzly, there was a long, 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 long line of people waiting to vote. Mama says she can't remember ever seeing so many people turn out. It's because people feel so strongly about this election, with lots of them for McCain and Palin, and some of them real big on Obama. So McCain and Palin were running against Obama for president. McCain was running and Obama was running. I wasn't allowed to go inside with Mama when she voted, so I stood there and studied everybody, and I thought it was really cool that people would stand in the rain to make their voice be heard. It made me want to be old enough to vote. When she came out, Mama nodded and smiled to the rest of the people in line. But then this man I'd never seen before, he has a big bushy beard and his mouth was real little and real red, hollered and said, "I bet you enjoyed pulling that lever, didn't you, tree hugger?" "You bet your ass I did," Mama said. I had never, ever heard her cuss before. Some of the people in line laughed, but most of them just kept their eyes on the ground. I felt like I should defend Mama, but I didn't know what to do. So I just gave him the dirtiest look I could muster up. He laughed at me, which caused his little red mouth to spread out and show his yellow teeth. I was so mad I couldn't stand it. But when we got in the car, Mama told me to let it go. He's just stupid, honey. Ignorant people don't know any better, but stupid people want to be stupid. So just forget it. Okay, so he was mad. The guy was yelling at his mama because he called his mama a tree hugger, a tree hugger. So a tree hugger is someone who loves nature and they want to protect and save nature. So there's a problem, a conflict between people who love nature and people who want to do the mountain top removal, right? Because when you do mountain top removal, you take all the trees away. So he was calling Mama a tree hugger, and he thinks being a tree hugger, someone who loves trees, is a bad thing. So that is why there's a conflict between people who love nature and people who love coal, love money. I don't know what they love. Okay. So that is, now we're on page 104, page 104. I am really glad your dad got to come home. It sounds like you all had a real good time together. Mine won't be home until Thanksgiving, but I talked to him on the phone last night. Our conversation didn't go so great because I was telling him how the mine is getting bigger and bigger and how worried I am over it and all that. And he said I should just accept that one person can't change things. I don't believe this. Last year in history, we read about a student in China who stood in front of a tank when the government didn't want to listen to any young people's complaints. After that, people started to pay more attention to people in China, how people in China had lost their freedom. But when I said that, Dad just said, yeah, and he's never been seen since either, has he? So see, he completely missed the point. Because I think the point is that if that boy hadn't stood up for what he believed in, then people wouldn't have paid as much attention. And also, the tank driver refused to run over him, although they were killing people left and right. So that says something about him too. Have you ever heard this story? This happened ages ago, like in the 80s sometime, if I'm remembering right. When I told Mama what Dad said, she just shook her head. She tried to bite her tongue and not say anything, but you know her, she couldn't stand it. So she got up and said sometimes she didn't know where he got some of his belief because they sure weren't from her. The mountaintop removal is getting worse over on Town Mountain. Mama goes over to the cliffs every day and makes sure the dozers are not getting over on our land. Dozers are the bulldozers, the big machines. The coal companies are real bad to take whatever they want, she says. It worries me because even though Mama is a true firecracker of a person, she is old. And sometimes her head swims because she has the sugar diabetes. So I worry about her being up on the cliffs. I have to stay after school every day because I have basketball practice. I do love basketball. It is the one thing that Daddy taught me that has been of use to me. Sometimes when I get real frustrated, there's nothing that feels as good as running down that basketball court and jumping up to swoosh that ball right through the hoop. It's like flying sometimes. Sometimes when I let that ball leave my fingertips, it's like my troubles are floating away with it too. Not always, but a lot of the time. Used to be, I liked most of the boys on the team too. But lately, it seems like the only one I can really talk to is my buddy Mark. I've been knowing Mark Combs since the first grade, and we have always been good friends. He's my best friend here, but you are my best friend, period. He likes to read too. He's a real brain, although you wouldn't know it to talk to him because he only talks about playing Wii and basketball. But when you go over to his house, he has shelf after shelf full of books, just like the teacher, right? Lots of books. He loves all those Narnia books and he's crazy over Harry Potter and he's dying for me to read The Hunger Games, which is his favorite book. But right now he's hooked on the Twilight books. He says he only reads them so he'll have something to talk to the girls about, so he can get them to go out with them. But I think it's because he really loves them. Mark's mom picks us up every day after practice and they drop me off. Mom can't come get me because her headaches are getting worse. And Mama has started working at this office downtown where they are organizing stuff to fight mountaintop removal. I always have Mark's mom drop me off at the end of the driveway, which always bothers her because she feels like she should drive me all the way up to the house so I can walk through the woods along Lost Creek. Well, yesterday I was walking through there and I saw that the creek was muddied up really bad, the way it gets after a big storm when all the leaves and branches and sand along the banks have been washed in. But it hadn't rained. And as the creek ran on, I saw that it wasn't just muddy, but there was some kind of orange gunk in it too. Our creek has always been clean as a whistle, so clean that I used to drop down on my knee and scoop up a handful of it on a really hot day. So the water used to be so clean he could drink it. I told Mama and she called some people to come test it. A couple evenings ago, Mama and I were talking taking our walk in the cool of the day. Rufus was trotting along beside us. Usually he likes to take off occasionally, then come back to check on us. But this time he stayed with us the whole time, like he was afraid to leave us alone. Every once in a while he would look up at me and smile, his tongue lolling out. He's the best dog. It was so warm that some of the crickets were even still hollering, and it almost sounded like springtime in the woods. The best thing about Mama is she doesn't talk your head off about stupid stuff. She only talks when she has something to say. A lot of grown-ups will ask you how things are going when they don't really care, but she actually wants to hear what you're saying. Anyway, I really like that. Sometimes Mama and I could just be quiet with each other, and that's what we were doing. Looking at the night sky, listening to that little bunch of crickets that were still hanging on into the fall of the year. I love the way Mama walks, easy and slow, but determined, like she has somewhere important to go. All at once, out of nowhere, Mama turned her face to me and said, "It may be that I have to get into some trouble over these mountains, River." I didn't know what to say, but I quit walking. I mean, it might end up that I get arrested or something, but sometimes the law arrests you to make a point. If I were to get arrested, you remember that I intended to, okay? She dragged out the word intended. That means if she gets arrested, she wanted to get arrested. I just nodded. I still really didn't get it. I still don't. And people might say bad things about me at school, but you just tell them that I'm standing up for what I believe in. If something is legal and unjust, sometimes people have to do something illegal to get attention. It's called civil disobedience. Have you studied Rosa Parks yet? So Rosa Parks was a famous African-American woman who was angry because they made Black people sit on the back of the bus. And she said, "No more." And she sat in the front of the bus, and they arrested her because it was illegal for Black people to sit in the front of the bus. So Rosa Parks is famous for civil disobedience. So civil disobedience means you aren't violent, you don't fight, but you do something that you think is correct, even though it's against the law. So that's what Mama might have to do to protect the forest and protect the mountains. She might have to do something illegal. She might have to do civil disobedience, and she might get arrested by the police. I asked her what she meant, the woman who refused. I asked her if she meant the woman who refused to sit in the back of the bus, and she said yes. And that was an example of civil disobedience. I told her if anybody ever said anything bad about her at school, I'd bust their mouth. But she didn't like that one bit. She talked real fast and loud, and she said that was no way to act. And that kind of attitude was what got countries into wars, and they didn't belong in, and caused many a good soldier to die. Then we listened to the crickets some more, quiet while we looked out onto the darkening world. Some really cool things in your letter. Number 1, that Hindi word for forest is jungle. Number 2, that those women fought for the trees. Number 3, that old folks can get food for $1.25 a plate. Everybody always says that food in the city is real high, but I guess not. 4, that the parakeet sits on the dog's rump. Number 5, that there is a bowling alley at the bus stop. Our bus stop is the parking lot of the Burger King. I only know this because Dad had to ride the Greyhound home from the Biloxi one time because his car was broke down. Number 6, that the bride peeled potatoes. Mama told me that when my parents got married, my mother wouldn't let anyone spend money on flowers from the florist because she thought that was a waste of money. So instead, she and Mama and Dad went up into the mountains and cut ivy and wildflowers and honeysuckle and decorated the whole church that way. So that girl peeling potatoes reminds me that somehow reminds me of that somehow. This was back when Mom laughed and danced in the living room and wore lipstick and looked at herself in the mirror. Back before her headaches, before Dad lost his job in the mines and had to go off to the Gulf to find work. What I did not like about your letter. Number one, that man who tore up the $100 bill in front of people and then taped it back together. I can see why you all laughed at that story, but it made me mad. Mama says there are lots of people here who live in big fancy houses and drive big fancy cars, even though they can't afford them. And that's why this country is in a real bad mess and the taxpayers are having to bail everybody out. She says that's part of the problem with MTR, mountaintop removal, because it exists because people are greedy and they want to do something and they want something instantly. I can't stand people who brag and go in front of people. What a big phony. And number two, I appreciate you telling me everything, but to be honest, I have no interest in ever hearing anything else about you shaving your legs or hair of any kind, period. Sorry, but I'm always honest with my friends. And well, that part about you shaving and all that kind of freaked me out. Okay, moving on. Have you noticed that I really like to make lists? It's a weird obsession of mine. When I was little, I would make lists of all my books and DVDs and video games. I have notebooks full of lists I used to make. I told you, I'm a weirdo. I really like the letter from your grandmother. It made me real sad though. I thought about it if I had to live way across the ocean from Mama, how bad I would miss her. I hope that you all get to see each other real soon. I also forgot to tell you that there is a big mountaintop removal mine over by Mark's house too. I didn't know about it, but today I was trying to talk to him about it again and trying to describe what it was wrong. And he said that they were running that kind of mine on the mountain above his house and that it's noisy and dusty. But his parents told him that it's just where they live, so get used to it. But he says his mother won't drink the water out of their pipes now. Basketball practice has been wearing me out lately. It's hard at first when you're not used to practicing that long every day, but I'll get back in shape soon and it won't bother me a bit. Coach says that if I keep up the way I've been playing at scrimmages, he's going to start me this year. I've never been a starter before, so this is a big deal. I'm still doing my stretching exercises and I have grown 1/8 more of an inch. I am now 5 feet and 7 3/4 inches. I guess I better go. Mama is hollering for me to come watch Obama give his acceptance speech. So that means Obama won that day. So he's giving a speech. Sincerely, Riverdene Justice. P.S. Have you ever heard anything by the White Stripes? Mark made me listen to them the other day on his iPod, and I'm really liking them now. I usually don't like hard rock, but they are really good. I bet your brother has some of their stuff. P.P.S. My favorite band ever is the Beatles, though. Okay, so that is it for River. And Obama is now president in the book. So hope you enjoyed your reading. Bye.